Hi everybody, welcome back to another Pause and Reflect with, I'm Corey Cohen from Path of Friendship, and we have here Bodhi and Bhakti. I don't know if you can see Bhakti sitting up there. This is where we take a minute every week now to pause with our dogs and connect with them, and then reflect on some things that we're going to talk about on how to become deeper connected as friends, which really is the basis for healing. And when I say healing, I'm talking H-E-A-L, to heal the wounds, to heal the stress, to heal the anxiety that's going on. Not H-E-E-L, that military, having your dog walk next to you, control kind of thing. No, we're about healing, not healing. So we're going to take a moment first to pause with our dogs and connect with them. And what we want to do is sort of get into the moment with them. You know, we're constantly up in our heads. We're talking to ourselves. We have these ongoing narratives and dialogues that are going on in our brains, in our minds, about things that have happened earlier, or worry, concern about what may happen in the future, or plans, or evaluations. We're constantly evaluating, I like this, I don't like this, or we're just, oh, there's Rocco making meowing sounds. There's a constant chatter talking that never seems to cease. And what it does, it takes us away from the present. And if we are going to connect with our dogs, we want to be present with them, which is really where they are. You know, Bodhi and Bhakti right now, even though they're resting, even if they're not resting, they're not worried about what's going to happen this afternoon or tomorrow, nor are they thinking back to yesterday when something happened. They're very tuned in, connected with the present. So if we are to be friends with them and become equals with them, because true friendship can only happen among equals, we need to be on the same level and have the same experience or similar experiences to them, and that's bringing us into this mindful attunement that we're going to get. So let's take a moment now just to sit with our dogs, take a breath in and take a breath out. And first, when we do the breathing, we want to connect with that by how the breath feels in our body. You know, so often we try to separate mind/body, but there really isn't much of a separation there. It's all connected. The neurons and the nerves from our brain travel throughout our entire body. So our whole body is part of our mind, and our whole mind is part of our body. And so when we breathe and we're experiencing that, we're really getting into our minds and joining with the experience of now and the present. And so take a breath in, feel it, breathe out, feel how it feels in the body, and just observe it, and just don't even acknowledge as far as if it's good or bad, just experiencing it. No judgments, just observe and focus. And what we can do with our dogs is, when we're with them, we can touch them, we can pet them, or even sometimes sitting next to them without touching them. You know, I work a lot with dogs who have had a lot of emotional trauma, a lot of dogs with PTSD and anxiety, and a lot of it comes from things that have happened to them in the early parts of their lives. Before I get to see them, before their adopters adopted them from the shelters or found them. And for some of these dogs, as wonderful as touch is, for some of these dogs, their experience of touch was pain, and their experience of touch was danger. So touch becomes the enemy. Touch is sort of the trigger for bad things. So if your dog is that way, and they don't like that, and they feel nervous with it, we can connect with those dogs without physically touching them. It's just sitting with them. One way to do that is just watch them and watch their breathing. It's not staring at them like a crazy person just staring, but it's just watching their breathing, connecting with them, maybe talking to them, letting them know, I'm here with you, it's safe, you're safe, and create that sort of healing atmosphere of security and sanctuary between the two of you. If your dog is okay with touch, then touching them and petting them is a fantastic way to bring ourselves into the present moment as well as our dogs, because as much as I'm touching and experiencing how Bodhi feels underneath my palm, he's experiencing time how my palm feels on his skin and on his fur. So we are getting this together. And the when we do that, when we start to analyze, when we start to feel, why am I doing this, or is this good, or we get back into our thoughts and our minds, it puts sort of it takes us away, it removes us and it separates us. So as we're doing this, thoughts will start to come up, but we want to recognize them and let them go, because thoughts kind of overlay the experience. It gets in the way. It's like a coat of paint. I like to work with wood. I love working with wood. I've done made wooden jewelry on the lathe, and I've made some hiking staffs and just carvings. I'm not very good. But it's fun to do that. And one of the reasons that I love to do that is each piece of wood is unique and special in itself. You know, if I'm hiking or I'm even in my yard, if I find a branch that has fallen down, I don't take anything live, but if I find something that's fallen, it has its own message. It has its own soul. Not to go crazy, but it has its own sort of spirit to it. And in order to see that, I'm not going to paint over it. I'm not going to cover it with all kinds of decorations, because what it is in itself is great. So part of the wonderful thing about the wood is to peel away the paint and the varnish and all the markings on it and reveal the patterns underneath. You know, there's a word in Chinese for these patterns, like the grain in wood or the patterns of clouds in the sky. It's known as Li, L-E. The pronunciation, obviously, I can't pronounce it correctly, but it really, there's a lot of kind of definitions, but the closest definition to what it is organic pattern. So that's Li, and let that come out. And when we're with our dogs and we're connecting with them, if we have all these thoughts and these judgments and these evaluations on our mind, it's like painting over that beautiful grain, that beautiful pattern that's naturally there. So when we're connecting with our dogs, strip that away. If it comes, let it come up, but don't cling to it. In other words, we don't want to physically force our thoughts out, because that's going overboard. But if we don't attach ourselves to them, if we don't get locked into them and let them carry us away, they'll evaporate. And so the thoughts will come up, your words will come up, everything will start to arise in your mind, because that's what we do. But let them go, let them come, and then just let them go and reconnect with our dogs in this sort of experiential domain where they live. And we can see and feel the patterns. And the patterns are different all the time. It's not the same. There's a place that I hike near me, which is really nice, and there's a little bridge that goes over a stream, and in that stream there's this sort of whirlpool waterfall, very, very small, and it's beautiful to see. But it's not fixed. Each time I'm there, it's a little different. It's constantly changing. The general pattern is the same. I can always look for the whirlpool, but the waters that go through it are never the same moment to moment. And it's the same with our dogs. Each time I'm petting Bodhi or Bhakti or any of my dogs, each time I'm touching them, each time I'm with them, they are totally different. Depending on what they're doing, depending on where they are, depending on the time of day. To see them in this light is to sort of renew that magical experience when we first saw them. When you first got your dog, that excitement, that thrill, that enjoyment, you don't know, there's that unknown, what to expect. Each time you're with your dog, that's there as well. We don't want to say, I know what they are. I've labeled them, I've boxed them in, I've caged them. We spoke a lot about that last week. When we do that, when we box them, we're not seeing our dogs. If we try to connect with our dogs through a veil of words, through a veil of evaluations, we're missing the experience of the constantly changing, constantly flowing lead their patterns of who they are, not just in how they feel, but what they do. And it's just each time is brand new. So we want to get rid of those boxes and those cages we put them in, and we want to get rid of the conditions that we have for them as well. And this starts to lead up to the point that I want to really speak about today, about conditions. We've all heard that dogs give us unconditional love. It's true. And what does that mean? Well, basically, they will love us no matter really what we do. And working with dogs with trauma and stress, and working most of my career with abused dogs and dogs in shelters, I've seen dogs who have licked the hand of the person in between the blows with the stick. I mean, they really have this sort of unconditional love. But should that be just one way? Should that be just them coming to us? Unfortunately, a lot of times, unintentionally, we make it that way. Because we tell our dogs, well, yes, you love me unconditionally. However, I'm only going to love you if you do X, Y, and Z. When we put conditions on our dogs, when we tell our dogs, we're going to love you if you act a certain way. We're going to love you if you look a certain way. We're going to love you if you behave in a way. What that does is it creates a tremendous amount of insecurity in them. It really does. I have my notes here. So I don't want to leave this out. So that's why if I check notes, yeah, I'm professional, but it's important stuff. That the idea of that unconditional love must be reciprocal. It must be between the two of us. It must be where I will love my dog no matter what they do. Contingencies and conditions create barriers and schisms between us, and we can never connect that way. They love us. No matter what we do, we need to love them as well. The insecurity that happens with them, that's actually a fact. There was a attachment theory, which was I believe it was in the 50s or 60s by John Bowlby and Mary Maines and a few others, worked with children with how attached they were to their mothers. And they found that those children who had insecure attachments, and there are various types of insecure attachments, but basically they never felt secure in their love from their mother or being completely attached. They carry that with them throughout their lives, and it creates a lot of different issues with them. And we need to heal that in ourselves, and we need to heal that with our dogs. One of the reasons that we are so connected with dogs is that if we've had some of these insecure attachments in our lives in other areas, we always find that our dogs will accept us and love us no matter what. And this accept us gives us that sense of security and belonging that is so important to heal our psyche, to heal our souls. Why would we damage theirs by telling them, I'll only love you if? We don't do it intentionally. We don't set out to do that. But we're taught to do that. And how are we taught to do that? Well, we're taught to do that through various training techniques. We're taught to not praise our dogs unless they do what we want them to do, or reward our dogs unless they do what we want them to. We basically take our love for our dogs, put it on the end of a stick and dangle it in front of them and say, I'm going to use this as a tool to manipulate you and get what you want. And so our dogs end up becoming in this constant state of anxiety. I must do something to please you. In other words, their whole lives become bent on what can they do or what do they need to do to feel secure, to feel that they belong, to feel that they're accepted, and to feel that they're loved. And yeah, it works. We can manipulate them and get them to perform all kinds of fancy tricks and all kinds of different behaviors, and it's effective. That's behaviorism. That's Skinnerian behaviorism and behavior modification. It's very effective. It can control your dog as well, if not better, than violence and punishment does. But what does it do to their intrinsic desires? What does it do to their inner motivations and their security? It takes it away. We should not use our love as a leverage tool of manipulation, because all that does is divides us further, and all that does is it intersects and puts a solid stone brick cage wall between us and our dogs, and creates insecurity on them. We don't want to use all that extrinsic stuff to get them to do it. We want to have that connection and have, we'll talk about working out conflicts in a later one, but we don't have to use bribery or manipulation with love to get them to do this stuff. So what do we do? How do we do this? Well, it's really simple. It's about spending moments with them, connecting with them, showing them that we love them. Love and being friendship is not just a feeling. Love isn't just, it was said by many people, love is a verb. It's not a noun, it's a verb. It's not just a feeling, it's what we do, it's how we act. I can say I love you, but I don't act it, it's not really there. The Buddha once said, to know and not to do is not really yet to know. And if we know that we love our dogs, yet we're not doing those things to show them that we love them, to show them that we're friends, we don't really know. So it's simple. Giving your dog a kiss, giving them a treat for no reason, going over and just petting them, calling them over, telling them you love them, regardless of what they're doing. We don't want to use our love as a bargaining chip. We don't want to use our love as a sort of a hook or a tool of manipulation. That's just destroys relationship and destroys friendship. Would you treat your friend that way? I know I certainly wouldn't. And if somebody treated me that way, they wouldn't be my friend. So why do we do this with our dogs? Love them without conditions. Show them that we love them. And part of showing that we love them without the conditions is that acceptance. And that saying, I love you the way you are. Not the way I want you to be. Not the way, we don't, when we get a dog in our lives, whether it's a puppy or a grown dog, we don't say, okay, you're here, now I'm going to turn you into what I want. It's not like customizing a car. They are who they are. And we must love and accept them for who they are, as they do with us, that reciprocation, that equal level. If we tell them, you're not good enough the way you are, I need to change you, well, what does that do for their egos? What does that do for their security? The friendship that we have with our dogs should be a sanctuary for both of us. That's the only way we can heal. We all need to heal each other. We're all going through rough times now, but all the time. Especially dogs who have had rough times, and we've all had that. To have that outward flow, to have that love as not just getting it in one direction, not just saying, I'll take it and I'll take it and I'll take it, but I'll only give it under certain conditions. No, we must give it as freely as we get it. You shouldn't judge. Love is as the Dalai Lama said, love is the absence of judgment. Free, unencumbered, unconditional, without contingencies. And that's how we develop this state of security, and that's how we develop that state of safety, and that's how we develop that connection as friends, which is so important to have with our dogs. Because from that base, from those roots, anything can grow. Some people here just accept my dog the way they are, and they think, well, all right, I'll accept my dog tearing up my furniture or biting. I have to control them. The truth is, so often those behaviors that happen, those wild, quote-unquote wild behaviors that happen, are not the dog. It's the result of misplaced control or conditional love or insecure attachments that happened in the first place. So to throw more on top of that only makes things worse. We need to heal those. We need to heal those divisions. And that's really what we're after. And same with us. Because the more we give out the love, the more there's room for it to come in. If I withhold mine, how can I take anything in? If my cup is full, how can I add any more in there? by giving out that love and having Bodhi bring and accepting his love and giving it out, it's like breathing. It's like going back to this breathing. If I just take it in, it's like taking an in-breath and only letting it out a little at a time. How much fun is that? It's not comfortable. It's not natural. Can't last long doing that. We breathe it in. So, what do? Here's our reflection. I had to change batteries. So if you notice, Bhakti isn't all of a sudden in a different position because my camera ran out of battery and I had to switch it. But it's fine. So what do? How do we change this? What can we reflect on and take away with this? Well, it's basically spending the time every day to show our dogs how much we love them, regardless of what they're doing. And whatever it is that they love, that we know that's going to communicate how we feel about them, that's what we do. So obviously petting them or sitting with them and giving them affection, giving them a massage, telling them how much we love them, talking to them often. I can't stress this enough. Talking to our dogs often, or speaking with them. Maybe that's more accurate, because we have to listen, not just out. We're not lecturing. It's not a monologue. It's a dialogue. We're engaging. But these are ways to show our love. Throwing the ball if they love that, playing with them. And by the way, when we do this, it's not because we're not going to make them sit each time to do this. We're not going to add these little conditions in there. Otherwise, it becomes like the fine print on something. The love we give should be free and unencumbered. It's like someone saying, free offer, and then you read the fine print and all these conditions and stuff you have to do. Nobody trusts it, right? You don't trust it. You don't want your dogs to not trust us. So when we're showing and giving our dogs loving without conditions, it's without conditions. No sit, no training, no anything. It's free, just as they come to us. They don't come to us, and before they kiss us or give us love, they don't make us do something. They just come and give it. Well, we're doing the same thing with them. So let's reflect this week on how often do we use our love as a tool, as a bargaining tool? How often do we take our affection for a dog unintentionally? We don't set out to do this, but how are we sort of getting in the way of the connection, building walls between us that kind of take away the security? And let's focus more on healing the division by not adding all these little conditions in there. And love them without conditions, without contingencies. Just love them for who they are. All right. I will see you next week, where we will talk about what happens when there are conflicts. And there will be some conflicts. And we will need to set some boundaries. All this is not about everybody just doing whatever they want without consideration of anybody else. I'm never advocating that. Nobody would. And it's not healthy to do that. So we'll talk about how to resolve the conflicts that we may have with our dogs and the conflicts we have with ourselves, and a way of setting boundaries that actually serve to heal us and bring us closer together. All right. I'll see you then. Bye.